I'm Kim and welcome back to my studio. Today I'm going to show you step by step how to paint a nighttime campfire scene. To start off, I took my black and I added 2 small dots near the top of my canvas and also around 2/3 of the way down. Next I have my dark blue and I'm going to add a few extra dots around. So what I'm building here is the sky. We're going to make a galaxy sky above the campfire, and so I'm going to start with the darkest colors in the corner, and then now I have my light blue and I'm slowly going to add this building towards the center of the canvas, and we're going to finish with the white color. Alright, so now all my paint is down, I'm going to get my sponge and I'm slowly going to work the colors into the center of the canvas. So I'm going to start with the darkest colors on the outside, slowly moving in and getting each individual color one by one so I can make sure they're mixed properly. So I'm going to start in the top right hand corner and then I'm going to switch to the bottom corner and start in on those colors, making sure I'm doing one color at a time and slowly mixing in the dark blue, then the light blue, and ending with the white. So as I finish with my white here, I'm also going to tell you a little trick that I use, which is just flipping the sponge around and using different sides. If I feel like there's too much white on one side of the sponge and I don't want to brighten up the surrounding colors too much, I'll flip it around and try to just use a gentler hand so that I can mix some of the colors in without letting them bleed or blend too much into one another. Once you're happy with your sky, the next step is to add in the stars over top. So I'm going to add a generous amount of white to my canvas, and then I'm going to get my medium bristle brush. So I'm going to dip this into the white paint, and then I'm going to apply it in a flicking motion to create the stars in an even spread across the canvas. Okay, so I'm happy with the way my stars look. I'm going to move on to the next step, which will be drawing in the bottom 1/3 of the painting. So I'm going to take my dark brown color and I'm actually just going to add it right to the canvas just to skip a step. And then I'm going to take a large flat brush and I'm going to work that into the bottom 1/3 of the canvas, just making sure there's an even coat there, but we don't want to have too much paint. So I'm going to start off with a little bit and add a little bit extra if it's not enough, just to make sure I get a nice even coat. Alright, now that we have our base down, we're going to add a little bit of texture to this brown. So I'm going to get my black and I'm going to add a very small amount to my canvas. And then I'm also going to get a new sponge and I'm going to dab it into the black, but then wipe off a lot of the excess. So there's only a tiny bit of black paint left on my sponge. Next, I'm just going to lightly apply this to my canvas. So I'm not pushing hard at all. I'm just barely grazing the canvas to add some of that texture in. Have our base, we're going to work on adding the trees in the background. So I'm going to get a really small brush here and I'm going to dip it into the black paint and we're going to start painting the very tops of the trees. So how I like to generally start this is by adding a line that shows me the middle of the tree, so how high it will be and what direction it will be facing in. I'm going to do a few trees on both sides and I want them to be tilted away towards the viewer, so it creates this effect that we're on the ground looking up towards the galaxy sky. So I'm going to create those few lines as a guide and then I'm just going to fill in the top 1/3 of the tree using this small brush, and then we'll switch to a bigger brush and we'll fill the remaining 2/3. Okay, so moving on to a bigger brush, I'm getting that medium-sized bristle brush from earlier, and I'm just going to load some black paint on there, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of the tree. So this part doesn't need to be as precise, and so I'm really just using this as a way to fill in a lot of the bottom in a way that looks organic and natural without having to spend too much time with my little brush dabbing in. And I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to start filling in some of the grass where I want it as well. So I'm using that same brush and I'm just stroking up lightly to create the effect of grass in the background. And so I decided to do this just because I want it to blend in nicely with the bottoms of the trees as well. So it doesn't really matter which order you do this in, whether you do the trees first or the grass first. But as I was doing the bottom of the trees on the right hand side, I realized it would be helpful for me as a guide to have where the grass starts and the trees end, and so that's why I decided to go ahead and put the grass along the bottom, just to give me an idea of how much I need to fill in for the trees. Looking at this, I noticed there's something that feels like it's missing, and so what I decided to do is add in some grass framing the bottom part of the painting as well. So I'm just going to add a few strokes on both the right and left side just to create the effect of we were looking into a clearing with a fire in the middle. Going back to my small brush here, I'm going to dip it into the black paint and I'm going to create a rough outline of where I'd like the fire to sit. So I'm going to create an outline of stones in an oval shape as well as the logs in the middle. And this doesn't have to be perfect because a lot of it's going to be covered up with the fire, but we do need a rough outline for where the fire should start, and so this is going to help serve that purpose. Alright, at this point I'd recommend putting your painting aside for a moment or cheating like I did and use a blow dryer to get it completely dry. This is because all of that black paint is really wet right now and we don't want it to blend in with the fire. So let's make sure it's totally dry before we move on to the next step. So I've added a bit of the soft light orange to my canvas, and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of it with my small brush, and I'm going to lightly go over the grass we drew in the background earlier. I'm going to concentrate it mostly in the middle and then fade out towards the edges, and this is to give the suggestion of the firelight dancing off of the vegetation in the back. So I'm going to work on the grass, and then I'm going to move up and add a little bit of those details to the trees as well. So now I'm going to go in and do the same thing with the stones on the outside of the fire pit. So I'm just going to give them a bit of a warm glow, and I'm going to do the same with the logs as well, and then add in some embers below the fire. So now that we have our base, I'm going to load up my brush with some of the same orange paint, and we're going to start on our fire. So I'm going to start in the very center with the first stroke just to show how high the fire will be, and then I'm going to gradually extend the fire outwards, making sure I'm keeping that triangular shape so the fire looks most natural. So I'm going to start off with some orange here, and then we're going to swap out to the yellow as well. Alright, as promised, I'm going to move on to the soft yellow color now. So I'm going to add that directly to my canvas, and you don't need to worry too much here about the orange color being wet still. It'll actually look nice and natural if you add it in over top because the two colors will begin to weave together. So I'm just going to add that yellow in between the existing orange streaks as well as on top. As I add this yellow color, I realize there's one optional step you can also add in as well, and that's to have some of the sparks flying up from the fire. So I'm going to add that along the same lines as the galaxy to look like some sparks are coming up from my fire. Alright, so this is the point where it should really start to feel like everything is coming together. I'm just switching back and forth between the orange and the yellow and trying to mix the two colors together to really give that fire a three-dimensional effect and also make sure it's as big as I want it to be. So feel free to play around with this and get it just exactly the way you'd like. And with that, we're finished. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I hope to see you in the next painting tutorial.